Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, and welcome to our Spider Strategies webcast for July of 2021. This month we'll be talking about solving the diverse challenges of local government with Spider Impact. My name is Tom Keating. I'm a customer success advocate here at Spider Strategies. Feel free to reach out to me anytime at tom.keating@spiderstrategies.com. It is my pleasure today to be your presenter. There are many challenges facing local governments, including responsibility for the performance of numerous and diverse public services. Local governments oversee management of many services, from police and fire to water and waste management, to parks and recreation, to transportation, and the list just goes on and on. Managing the performance of so many separate critical functions and teams can at once be especially daunting for leadership. Another challenge is limited budgets to cover many areas of need. Governments often face the challenges of having only so much budget to address competing needs across the different areas of service and community support. This makes it imperative for local governments to know what project and initiative investments will have the greatest positive impact for their communities. Another challenge is increasing demand for community transparency. Constituents these days are seeking greater transparency from their local government, and many have a desire for greater involvement. Providing information to the community easily and through widely available technology can help bridge that transparency gap that governments often face. And lastly, the necessity to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. Whether quickly mobilizing to respond to a pandemic or a natural disaster, or planning for an anticipated water shortage, local government leadership is continuously required to shift operations, focus, and funds to meet the challenging needs of the community. And again, these are just a few of the challenges facing local governments. On today's webcast, we'll address three of the challenges that I have learned about recently in speaking with some of our customers and some other cities and municipalities throughout the U.S. We'll start by addressing a water usage and infrastructure challenge that I learned actually from my hometown city government, where they implemented a great water conservation project that I'll share with you through Spider Impact. We'll also address public safety and a police staffing situation that I learned from a major metropolis out on the East Coast of the United States. And lastly, we'll address some housing and building permit challenges that another one of our customers down in Texas shared with me, and how they are using Spider Impact to address their building permit challenges. With that said, let's go ahead and get into Spider Impact and address a mythical city called Springfield. We'll start in the scorecard section of Spider Impact and just share with you the nature of the Springfield city government. I should pause real quickly, just if anyone is watching this is actually from a city named Springfield, this is not your city. There are actually, I learned, 24 different Springfields in the United States. So much like the Simpsons, the Springfield in the Simpsons cartoon, this Springfield is, of course, a mythical city here in the United States. The Springfield city government is comprised, as you can see here, of many, many different departments and divisions, from animal services to building inspection, down to police and fire, human resources, municipal court, parks and recreation, and so forth. And they have themselves organized in a very typical sort of fashion. We're at the highest city government level, where the mayor and the city council and all the department heads organize and operate the city with visibility through Spider Impact in a scorecard that has been set up in a fairly classic balanced scorecard kind of approach, where they break their overview of performance out to perspectives such as constituents and stakeholders, financial stewardship, internal processes, and so on. Underlying each of those perspectives are objectives such as achieve the highest standards, provide attractive, unique, and connected spaces, and so forth. This, again, is a classic balanced scorecarding approach. And the beauty of an approach like this is it allows the city to view their performance overall across that scorecard using a strategy map. Strategy maps are great and intuitive ways to see your overall performance across the various perspectives and even down into the underlying objectives. And again, Spider Impact gives you great capabilities of looking at various different time periods, going forward and backward in time, and getting a nice red, yellow, green intuitive view of performance across all of the various objectives and perspectives. I also just want to note that in addition to the overall city view, each of the different departments or divisions within the city of Springfield, of course, have their own unique departmental scorecards as well. So if I jump to the bottom down here, we'll take a look at Public Works, which is one of the areas that we will be addressing here in the very near future, and see that they have their own particular scorecard, which is structured a bit differently from the overall city scorecard, but it works very well for them in Public Works. Similarly, the police department has its unique scorecard, again, structured quite a bit like the Public Works scorecard, and again, unique and different from each of the different departmental scorecards. So each department can live fairly autonomously, create their own desired scorecard, and track their own performance through that scorecard. So let's start talking about the first challenge that I alluded to earlier, which occurs down in the Public Works department here at the city of Springfield. In the Public Works department, they track a lot of different things, including under the workload area, the gallons of water consumed. Now today, I started this webinar again in July of 2021. So in the far upper right, you see that I'm seeing performance through June of 2021. But to talk about our story here in the Public Works department, I'm going to go back into 2020 and show you here that the performance on the gallons of water consumed in 2020 was really of great concern to the Public Works department. You can see that virtually every month in 2020 was red. So they are underperforming. They are into the red threshold area in terms of quantity of water consumed, millions of gallons of water consumed. Only 1 month did they even approach the yellow performance area. So what they did in January of 2021 is they got together as a department and said, what can we do to improve performance on, quantity of water consumed in the city of Springfield? And what they did is they met and put all their heads together and threw out ideas. And in this case, they decided to come up with what we call an initiative. This initiative is to promote water pressure regulators. I'll highlight it here at the top. And this is a fairly complex initiative because it is comprised of many different tasks. They decided that what they would do is research equipment and vendors for water consumption or water regulators, develop a community education and promotion campaign. They would purchase 3 different prototypes of water regulators. They would hire a water pressure regulator program promotion team. They would select the best water pressure regulator. They would implement a door-to-door, knocking on doors promotion program to promote the use and adoption of regulators, water regulators in residential homes throughout the city. And then they would, of course, roll out an installation program. So they put this initiative in place, and there are different ways to view this. You can look at this initiative from an overview perspective. You see that all the tasks and the milestones come together to provide an overall budget of $309,000. They completed this again at the end of August 31st, 2021, and they came in on time, on schedule, and again also under budget, which was great. Now, having established that initiative, they wanted to keep their eye on the ball, if you will, of the problem that they were looking to attack or fix, which was this idea of water consumption via implementing or installing water pressure regulators. So they set up a dashboard similar to this, and I'll just give it a little more space. And this gave them the opportunity over time, as they worked on their initiative. I'll just move ahead here into 2021. If you look to the far lower left corner, you can see that the initiative to promote water pressure regulators is forging ahead. Work is being done, money is being spent. And as that happens, if you look in the graph up at the top, you can see that the gallons of water consumed is, of course, being displayed. And then also now down along the bottom is the number of water pressure regulators installed. So as the year 2021 moved along and more effort was put into the initiative to promote those water pressure regulators, you can see that first and foremost here in April of 2021, the number of water pressure regulators installed went up to 50. And moving ahead into May and June and July, you can see that again, the number of regulators installed continue to increase. And notice what is simultaneously happening here is that the quantity of water consumed throughout the city is reducing. This is what they had hoped to see. This was the desired end result of installing many different, lots of different water pressure regulators in people's homes. So again, as the year forged on into September, October, November, and even to the end of the year in December 2021, you can see that they achieved really great success with that initiative and the overall program to promote and install water pressure regulators with the goal of reducing the quantity of water being consumed throughout the city of Springfield. So internally, the Public Works Department was thrilled with this effort. And this, again, is a view that they are looking at internally. Now, they were so happy about this result that they said, we have to get this out to the public. We need to tell people about this really great result. So they created another dashboard, which is intended for public view. So I'll just switch over to that. Again, here within Spider Impact, this doesn't show up so great. It's quite small, but the intent on this deliverable is a web page for public consumption. And so they took and transferred this or just shared it out to their public-facing web page for the city of Springfield, and here's that page. So now all the constituents of the city of Springfield have visibility to the success of this water pressure regulator program and the result of greatly reduced, water consumed. I will say that at the bottom here, the graph at the bottom does not show you any further into the future past July, because this web page is intentionally set up to be smart enough to identify that today happens to be July 16th, and so it's only showing me performance of all of these measures through July of 2021. But that's one really, really strong, successful program as implemented in the Public Works Department at the city of Springfield. Okay, moving on to our next story, which is going to be at the police department. So I'll change here over to the police department scorecard. Again, just review with you here a couple of different dashboards that the police department employs to review performance. Now, the story behind this particular vignette or the police department example is that at the city of Springfield, police officers have the ability to leverage their position as an acknowledged officer of the law to do outside security work at things like sporting events, concerts, bars and nightclubs, what have you. That extracurricular work is something that the city terms proactive patrol time versus standard patrol time. So within their scorecard, the police department tracks standard patrol time and proactive patrol time, and they like to do a comparison of proactive patrol time, which is that outside work, against the standard patrol time, which is their quote-unquote normal day job. And the idea here is that, the police chief wants to make sure that all officers keep their eye on the ball of their full-time standard day job and not become distracted or mentally or physically taxed by the extra proactive patrol time that they may be choosing to do in their off hours. Okay, so of course here throughout the scorecard view, of course we can look at all of these different distinct measures one by one, and what we see here, again, historically, is a little bit of a situation if we go back to late 2020 and even into early 2021, where the standard patrol hours are just pretty much red across the board, and this really falls to the police department itself and its choices on staffing and how many hours it asks officers to work. The proactive patrol time is another measure that they do track. Officers are good enough to share the information about their proactive or outside patrol time spent. And then, of course, they do, again, a calculation of proactive versus standard patrol time, hoping to make sure that everything is kept reasonable. And what they see here is that, if we get into, if we go back to December and January and what have you, you see there's a bit of a troubling trend here in early 2021. We'll notice that November, December, January, things are trending into the red and seem to be staying in the red into 2021. So again, the police chief and all of his commanders got together and said, what can or should we do about this so that we just make sure we have oversight on this proactive patrol work versus the standard patrol work. And so what they did is they, again, just like the public works folks, got together, had a meeting, talked about what they could do, and established, again, another spider impact initiative. This initiative they called Establish Oversight on Proactive Patrol Hours. They set it up with a couple different milestones and tasks. The first milestone was to meet with union officials, and they gave it a small little budget just so they could buy lunch for the union officials. Then they got together and set up a task to create training and enforcement documents that they could share with the officers just to explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, and just baseline expectations of all the police officers. And then they set themselves up with another milestone to deliver and distribute the policy and any backup material that they wanted to get into the hands of all their different officers. So this overall initiative, as you can see, has a starting date of April 15th of 2021 and a due date of May 31st. So, a simple month and a half, relatively small initiative here with the goal of making sure that they just have oversight and hopefully rein in the proactive patrol time versus the standard patrol time. So again, if we take a look at the result of that particular initiative, and again, it's probably most easily done here within a dashboard. So the scorecard view is all well and good, but sometimes it's a little too detailed. So the police officers set themselves up with a nice dashboard here so that they could view the idea of proactive patrol time, standard patrol time, and the effect that the initiative down along the bottom is having on those patrol times. So if I go back to late March of 2021, so the end of March 2021, and we take a look at performance again, let me remind you that there was a troubling trend on these proactive versus standard patrol percentage measure. And as we move ahead into April, while this initiative is being worked on, really not much change in terms of actual performance, but along the bottom, you can see again that effort is being put in, human capital and money is being spent on that initiative. And as we get into May, where they do complete that initiative successfully at the end of May. So the initiative is complete, the materials are out there in the hands of the officers. And into June 2021, we don't see really a whole heck of a lot of change. But as that information kind of sinks in and officers talk to each other and say, yeah, this is reasonable, it makes sense, that we should keep oversight, if you will, on our own personal time and make sure that we're not taxing ourselves outside of standard patrol hours. You can see that as we get into July and August and even September and later into the year, that again, that particular initiative had some really successful results in terms of overall improving the proactive versus standard patrol percentage measure. That's very important, to the police chief. So again, the police chief is able to use that dashboard to see, how the initiative directly impacted the measure that he or she is most concerned about. And then the police chief also has his or her own particular, if you will, dashboard that allows him or her oversight over the whole department's performance. So again, going back in time, you can see that if I get back into, again, early of 2021, back into March, April, again, that proactive versus standard patrol measure, which is the one in the upper left corner here, kind of all important, is very troublingly red, as we saw on the graphs earlier, into May, June, July. Now in July, again, it starts to improve, August, September, and so forth. So again, it's the same information, just being presented in a much more palatable, consumable fashion on the dashboard, but also, again, retaining visibility to all the details down here along the bottom, month over month. Again, nice, intuitive red, yellow, green color coding of everything. And again, I have not yet said it, but any of these things are drillable. So if the police chief wanted to go in and look specifically at the proactive patrol hours, he can certainly do that quite easily via just a simple drill through. So that's the police chief's overview of it. But they didn't lose sight of the importance of sharing this information, not just at the management or the chief's level, but making sure that all the officers have the opportunity to view their own performance in terms of standard versus proactive patrol time. So here in the police department scorecard, they set up a couple of the officers, Farrington and Sundgren, were good enough to offer to volunteer as sort of prototypes of this program. So Officer Farrington was set up with his own scorecard here, looking at his own individual patrol measures just for him. Similarly, Officer Sundgren, exact same story, Sundgren has the exact same sort of scorecard layout and format, but it's all particular just to Officer Sundgren. Now that's all well and good, and I, logged in as I am as an administrator, or let's say I'm logged in as the chief of police, I can see all the officers' information. But each officer, of course, should only be seeing their own particular information. So to share this individually, I'm going to go ahead and log out, and I'm going to log in as Officer Farrington. So Officer Farrington logs into Spider Impact, and the very first thing that he sees on his main welcome page is an alert right here indicating that the Farrington standard versus proactive patrol comparison is available, and it invites him to please review his own personal dashboard comparing his standard versus proactive. And a nice single click takes Officer Farrington directly to his own personal dashboard. And again, it's the same layout that the police chief has, but again, of course, it won't surprise you, this is pertinent only to Officer Farrington and his particular performance. And the exact same thing is happening, of course, for Officer Sundgren. So if I log in as Officer Sundgren, again, Officer Sundgren lands at his homepage or welcome page here within Spider Impact, and again, a single click will take him to his own dashboard, showing him his, of course, standard versus proactive patrol hours. So this one application is basically fulfilling the needs of the macro level, from the police chief's view of all officers, all the way down to the unique individual officers, and again, private information that should be kept private and shown only to the officers themselves. Bear with me as I log back in here as an administrator so that I can continue the demonstration. Bear with me, please. Okay, so that's the police department example that I want to discuss. Let's get back in here and follow along with another departmental challenge that we faced here at the city of Springfield. So I'll jump back into the Springfield city government scorecard. And in this case, we're going to go into the building inspection department. The challenge here for the building inspection department is that they really had very, very mediocre performance throughout 2020 in terms of taking care of building permits. And again, this is an example that was shared, and this is a real world example of, again, one of our cherished customers down in Texas told me about the backlog that they are experiencing in terms of just permits, getting permits out, both residential and commercial permits. The residential permits, of course, there's a housing boom going on here in the United States, and it's really the residential permits that is a huge holdup for them. So here at the city of Springfield, what they do is they track, of course, residential permits, the time it takes to get those permits out the door into the hands of their constituents so that people can do the building and improvements that they need to do on their homes and or their businesses. And this, again, is all tracked here in Scorecard. And again, the building inspection manager keeps his or her eye on everything going on in terms of permits with a nice, easy to understand dashboard that gives him visibility to residential permit times, commercial permit times, and again, a view of performance over time. And again, the issue or the challenge, I'm going to navigate here back in time into 2020. And if we just look at really overall in 2020, it's not that performance is terrible in terms of residential or commercial permit signs, but it's not really great. And the building inspection department determines that they certainly can make some improvements. And again, they can view their performance in this fashion. And as you saw, there's lots of different detailed categories of permits that are requested and provided through the city, whether it be commercial, residential, or over the counter OTC categories of permits. So, like the other departments, the building inspection, crew got together and said, how can we improve our performance, our departmental performance in terms of getting permits out the door and into the hands of our businesses and our residential homeowners faster. And so again, they established an initiative to develop and implement a mobile inspection system. The people in the field said, well, it takes forever. I have to go out and do my inspection, and then I have to come back to the office and I have to compile all the information that I learned during the inspection, and only then can I get a permit out the door. It sure would be a lot quicker if I had a mobile application that I could use on site and get the information that I learned from the inspection immediately into the permit, system so that the permits can go out the door faster. So this, again, is another multi-step initiative here where they decided that first and foremost, what they need to do is get a mobile inspection system. And they considered buying one. And then they talked to IT, and IT said, we can make that for you. And if you can give us $20,000, we can write or create for you a mobile inspection system. So that's the first task that they determined. And again, they gave it a budget of $20,000. They then gave themselves the opportunity a little further down the road to test that new system. And again, I should have pointed out, this initiative is starting in January of 2021 and is due in mid-July of 2021. And they gave themselves, as I said, of course, the opportunity to test the solution in mid-June and make sure that it's working to satisfaction. And then, of course, as a last task on this initiative, they want to train all their field inspectors on the use of the new mobile inspection system. So again, like the other initiatives, these are all created with the best of intentions, to improve performance. So again, if I go back, to the dashboard section here, and we forge ahead in time to January, February, so forth. So again, people are working, if I go down here to this impact of the new mobile inspection system, this is the same kind of view, where along the top, we have a nice Gantt chart view of that initiative to develop and implement a mobile inspection system so people can understand when things are supposed to be happening and or when they're done. And again, the end results in terms of performance down here along the bottom. I think probably this dashboard shows it a little bit better from an overview perspective. So again, as 2021 marched along and people were working on that mobile inspection system, again, we still have fairly mediocre, somewhat lackluster performance, even all the way through June of 2021. But again, remember, it's only in June when that mobile inspection system is being tested. And then, of course, the intent is to roll it out, mid to late summer and get it into the hands of all the various commercial and residential inspectors. So, of course, in July of 21, they do start seeing a little bit of improvement in performance, but then back in August, it's kind of like, But notice here that once that mobile inspection system is in full production use, in September, we see a marked improvement in both residential and commercial categories. And as we forge ahead through the remainder of 2021, you can see that they finally here in November and December of 2021 have achieved the type of performance that they really want, where those residential permits are going out quickly, the commercial permits are going out quickly, and they give themselves a great pat on the back for coming up with that wonderful new mobile inspection system that they put in the hands of all of their different inspectors. And then along the way, while they were doing this, they figured, well, let's create some additional dashboards that might be helpful both internally and now that our inspectors are out there in the field using this new mobile inspection system, let's make some reports that they can consume or that they can use out in the field. So a couple of these different dashboards, again, the detailed view gives us a view of all three different, commercial, residential, and OTC categories. But then they broke it down for the folks that are just residential inspectors. Here are all the detailed categories of permits by residential categories. There's a commercial permit times, again, by categories. And then there's an OTC permit times report view, again, by categories. Now, one of the beautiful things about Spider Impact is that anything you create here, whether it be on a desktop or as I'm working here on a laptop, and you can take advantage of the screen and the real estate that's available to you, most appropriately. And you can, of course, always adjust, you can adjust your screen resolution, what have you. They wanted to make sure that these applications are pertinent and usable on mobile devices. And that's, again, a great advantage of Spider Impact. It's build it once and use it really on any physical platform or device. So these reports, of course, can be consumed on a phone or on a tablet out in the field. And it's a little bit difficult for me to show you here on my laptop, really the experience that a field-based, permit inspector is going to experience with an iPhone in his or her hand. But I can do my best here to try and make the resolution a little bit different. And this is about the best I can do here on my laptop computer to give you the feel of how this report is going to look on an iPhone, let's say. So this, again, is live and it's dynamic and it's all drillable. So there's, just like within the Spider Impact solution, if you're using it again on a desktop, you have this opportunity, of course, to change times. You can drill through, you can do all of that, and you can do all of that as well on really any mobile device. So I did go ahead and make a dashboard here real quickly, that this is a screen capture from my iPhone. And I took this capture of the residential permit times report last night at 9:39 p.m. So this is just a quick, screen capture of my cell phone showing you that residential permit times report and what it looks like, exactly what it looks like on an iPhone. All right, let me just again adjust my resolution here, get it back to where I really kind of want it to be for presentation purposes here. So folks, that is the 3 different areas at the city of Springfield that I wanted just to talk about and share with you the story. So again, as a review, we looked at the Public Works Department and their challenge of, water, the lack of water even more and more in our world, and what they can do to reduce consumption. We talked about the Police Department and their staffing challenges and making sure that officers are staying laser focused on their standard patrols and not being distracted by their proactive patrols. And we looked at the Building Inspection Department and talked about how they improved the permit delivery time across that entire department. With all that said, bear with me here, and I'll just get back to my little presentation. I'll just bring this back up, start it up again, quick review. Oh, and that's the point at which I guess I'm ready to thank you for joining me and watching this webcast with me. I hope it was helpful to you, and hopefully you have got a great view on how Spider Impact can help you at local government, whether it be cities, states, counties, any of the different local government flavors you can think of. Spider Impact is here and ready to help you. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful, and please have a great day.